Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be tackling evolution, but we're not just talking about Darwin and all that stuff. We're going way beyond that with David Deutsch's ideas from his book, The Beginning of Infinity.
So,
Are you familiar with Deutsch at all?
oh yeah. Big fan.
Yeah.
Really interesting thinker.
So we're going to be looking at his book, The Beginning of Infinity.
Yeah.
And Deutsch argues that evolution
Mm-hmm.
isn't just about biology, but it's like woven into the very fabric of reality.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating perspective because, we tend to think of evolution as this biological process of, natural selection and, the survival of the fittest.
Right.
But Deutsch takes it a step further, and
Yeah.
he argues that it's a much more universal process
Okay.
that applies to all sorts of things, not just living organisms.
So how does he define evolution then if it's not just, like I said, finches and Darwin?
Well, he describes it as a universal process of problem solving through variation and selection. So basically, it's like you have a problem and you come up with multiple solutions, some better than others, and then the best solution kind of wins out in a sense.
So it's like survival of the fittest solution.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he argues that this applies to everything from, the evolution of the universe itself to the development of ideas and technology.
Like the evolution of the iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. Like from the first, clunky cell phones to these sleek smartphones we have today.
So it's constantly evolving?
Constantly evolving, constantly improving.
So what's driving this evolution then if it's not just natural selection?
Well, Deutsch argues that the driving force behind all of this is knowledge.
Knowledge.
He says that organisms, societies, even the cosmos, they all evolve by accumulating and refining knowledge.
Okay, so knowledge is like the engine of evolution.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Okay.
And he uses this really interesting example, the evolution of writing systems.
Okay.
We started with simple pictograms, and eventually we developed complex alphabets.
Right.
And that's knowledge evolving. Finding better ways to represent and communicate information.
And now we have emojis. So are emojis like the next step in that evolution then?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think you could make that argument. There's certainly a new form of communication.
Yeah.
And they're evolving all the time, right? New emojis are being created all the time.
Yeah.
But here's where things get even more mind-blowing.
Okay.
Deutsch argues that even something as massive and seemingly unchanging as the sun is actually tied to the future of knowledge here on Earth.
The sun.
The sun.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, he argues that the color of the sun billions of years from now will be influenced by how humans choose to interact with it.
Wow.
Our knowledge will determine whether we harness its energy, leave it alone, or maybe even alter its course.
So our knowledge today could potentially impact the future of a star. That's a pretty big responsibility.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible thought, right? It really underscores how powerful knowledge is, according to Deutsch.
It's definitely making me think differently about evolution.
That's the thing about Deutsch. He really challenges our assumptions.
Yeah.
And one of the other really fascinating concepts he introduces is the idea of memes.
Memes. Like those funny pictures on the internet.
Well, not exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
those are a type of meme, but in Deutsch's context.
Yep.
He's talking about units of cultural information that replicate and evolve much like genes do.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so think of them as ideas, behaviors, or styles that spread from person to person.
Okay.
Just like genes carry biological information, memes carry cultural information, and they shape our beliefs, our behaviors, and our societies.
So this is like when a new dance craze takes over.
Exactly, or a certain fashion trend spreads like wildfire.
So those are memes in action.
Precisely. They're constantly vying for our attention, trying to replicate and become dominant.
Wow. Okay, memes are a lot more than I thought they were.
Definitely. And this brings us to a rather sobering example that Deutsch uses the collapse of Easter Island.
Easter Island. With those giant stone heads.
Exactly. He uses it as a cautionary tale about what can happen when mimetic evolution stagnates.
Okay, how so?
Well, the islanders had this incredible culture, but they couldn't adapt. They couldn't generate new knowledge to solve their problems. And that ultimately led to their decline.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty stark example of what can happen when a society becomes too static, too resistant to change.
It makes you think about what memes are shaping our lives today and how important it is to be aware of the ideas that are influencing us?
Absolutely. It's a crucial question to ask, especially in today's world where we're bombarded with information from all directions.
Yeah, definitely.
But, you know, even with all this talk of evolution and change, Deutsch also explores some truly mind-bending concepts like the multiverse.
Okay, now we're getting into some serious science fiction territory.
It might seem like a leap, but it all ties back to the idea of unpredictability and the vastness of possibilities.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So the multiverse, this idea that stems from quantum physics, suggests that our universe isn't alone.
So like parallel universes.
Exactly. There could be countless parallel universes out there constantly branching out with different possibilities.
So there could be a universe out there where I'm like a rock star.
Maybe. But the key takeaway here is that even within this potentially infinite expanse of possibilities, the future isn't predetermined.
Okay, so it's not all set in stone.
Not at all unpredictable events, and the creation of new knowledge are constantly reshaping reality.
So even with a multiverse, we still have a role to play in shaping the future.
Exactly, and that's where Deutsch sees the power of optimism.
Okay, we got to talk about that next time because I'm dying to know more.
I'm happy to. We've got a lot more to unpack with Deutsch's ideas.
Yeah, we've only just scratched the surface.
Definitely.
All right, well, we'll pick up this conversation next time, but for now, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive. See you then. So we were talking about Deutsch's optimism.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah, well, he's a strong believer that, problems are fundamentally soluble.
He thinks that our ingenuity, fueled by creativity and this constant creation of new knowledge, can help us overcome pretty much any obstacle.
So he's like a can-do kind of guy.
Exactly. He's all about challenging those, doom and gloom narratives and really understanding the power of human potential.
It's refreshing to hear, especially with so much negativity out there these days.
I agree. And, he even contrasts his view with, Paul Ehrlich's predictions about resource depletion.
Oh, yeah, the population bomb guy.
Exactly. And even Jared Diamond's Guns, Germs, and Steel, which, kind of attributes societal success to geography more than anything else.
Right, right.
So Deutsch is saying we shouldn't just focus on limitations, We should embrace our ability to innovate and find solutions.
Yeah, I like that.
And speaking of finding solutions, he has some pretty radical ideas about how we actually create knowledge.
Okay, how so?
Well, he completely rejects the traditional view of knowledge as something that's built up gradually from observations.
So like seeing is believing doesn't work for him.
He says it's much more complex than that. He calls that traditional view inductivism, and he sees it as kind of a flawed approach.
Interesting.
Okay. Instead of just passively observing, Deutsch believes we actively create knowledge by generating explanations and theories.
So it's not just about what we see, but how we interpret it.
Exactly. Our minds are constantly creating and testing explanations, trying to find the ones that best fit the evidence and solve the problems we encounter.
So knowledge is more about active problem solving than just collecting facts.
That's the core of his argument, and this whole process of problem solving, according to him, is inherently creative.
Okay.
We don't just stumble upon the right answers, We actively create them through conjecture, criticism, experimentation.
So we're all kind of like scientists in our own way.
You could say that.
I like that.
He sees knowledge creation as this dynamic evolutionary process, always pushing us towards better explanations and a deeper understanding of reality.
Just like constantly refining our understanding.
Exactly, but he doesn't stop there.
Of course not.
He dives into the philosophy of science, grappling with those big questions about the nature of reality and how we can know anything, for sure.
Okay, let's get philosophical then. How does he define reality?
Well, she argues that we figure out what's real by looking for explanations.
Explanations.
Things that can be explained, things that have a causal impact on the world, those are considered real.
So if we can explain it, it's real.
Well, it's not quite that simple.
Okay.
He has specific criteria for what makes a good explanation.
Okay, what are those?
Well, he says a good explanation has to be what he calls hard to vary.
Hard to vary.
Meaning that if you change any of its details, it becomes a worse explanation.
So it has to be like really solid.
Exactly. It has to be robust, able to withstand scrutiny and alternative interpretations.
Can't just fall apart if you look at it sideways.
Exactly. And he argues that scientific explanations are the best we have because they're constantly being tested and refined.
So science is like our most reliable tool for understanding reality.
That's a key principle for Deutsch. He sees science as this incredible engine for generating knowledge, constantly pushing us towards a deeper understanding of the universe and our place in it.
But if we're always discovering new things, revising our theories, does that mean we can never really be certain about anything?
That's a crucial point. And Deutsch actually embraces that idea. He calls it fallibilism.
Fallibilism.
It means we can never be absolutely certain about anything.
Hmm.
But he doesn't see that as a weakness. He actually sees it as a strength.
Okay.
It's what allows knowledge to grow and evolve.
So we're always open to the possibility of being wrong.
Exactly. We're constantly learning and refining our understanding.
That's actually kind of exciting.
It is. And Deutsch argues that this whole quest for knowledge isn't just a human thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
He thinks it's a fundamental feature of the universe itself.
Wait, is he saying the universe is like creating knowledge?
In a sense, yes. He believes that the laws of physics actually allow for knowledge creation,
Wow.
and that this process is happening everywhere, not just in our minds.
Okay, that's pretty wild.
It is. He sees knowledge as this fundamental force shaping everything from, the evolution of life to the behavior of stars.
So knowledge is kind of like the fabric of reality.
You could say that, but then the question becomes, if knowledge is so important, why is there so much ignorance and irrationality in the world?
Right, a good point.
And it's a question Deutsch grapples with, too. He acknowledges that, creating knowledge is difficult, it's often unpredictable, there are always obstacles and pushback.
So it's a constant battle between knowledge and ignorance.
You could say that he believes we have to actively fight for knowledge, We can't take it for granted. We have to seek it out, challenge assumptions, and be willing to change our minds.
So it's not enough to just sit back and absorb information.
Exactly. We have to be active participants in this pursuit of knowledge.
I like that. It's empowering.
It is. And that's really what Deutsch is advocating for, a more rational, optimistic, knowledge-driven approach to life. One that embraces our creativity and our ability to solve problems and build a better future.
I'm on board with that.
Good.
Yeah.
But how does all of this connect back to his view of evolution?
Right. That's what we started with.
Well, for Deutsch, the creation of knowledge is the driving force behind all forms of evolution.
Okay.
Whether we're talking about biological evolution, cultural evolution, or even the evolution of the universe itself.
So it all comes back to knowledge.
Exactly. It's the fuel that powers the engine of evolution.
I like that analogy.
And that means that we as knowledge creators have a pretty big responsibility,
Yeah.
to keep that engine running, to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's a big challenge, but it's exciting too.
It is. And, Deutsch's perspective really makes you appreciate the power and potential of human ingenuity.
It does. We've covered a lot,
Right.
but it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
There's definitely more to unpack. We need to bring all of these ideas together to really see the bigger picture.
Okay, so let's do that next time. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of really big ideas from Deutsch.
We have.
So let's try to bring it all together. We started with this idea that evolution isn't just about biology.
Right.
It's like this universal process driven by problem solving
Right.
and, creating new knowledge.
And we've seen how that applies to everything.
Yeah.
From, the evolution of ideas to technology.
Even the sun.
Even the sun. Right. And there's the whole thing about memes.
Yeah.
Those units of cultural information that are like genes, that they spread and evolve.
Yeah, those were a surprise.
Definitely.
And then the multiverse, which is just mind-blowing.
It is.
But through it all, there's this thread of optimism that runs through Deutsch's work.
Mm-hmm.
He really relies on the power of human ingenuity, to solve problems and create a better future.
He does, and he really emphasizes that we shouldn't underestimate ourselves.
Right.
Our capacity for knowledge creation and problem solving is huge.
But let's be real for a second. We're facing some serious challenges in the world. Climate change, inequality, political divisions. Can knowledge really solve all of that?
Well, Deutsch acknowledges that these are complex issues.
Yeah.
But he still maintains that we shouldn't underestimate ourselves.
Okay.
Throughout history, we've consistently found solutions to problems that seemed impossible.
So it's like that problems are soluble mindset.
Exactly. He wants us to adopt that mindset, to believe that with enough creativity and determination and collaboration, we can find a way.
It's definitely a more hopeful way to look at things.
It is. And, he backs up his optimism with real examples from history and science and technology.
Right, showing how human ingenuity has always pushed us forward.
Exactly. But he also acknowledges that the future is inherently uncertain, especially when you bring in the whole multiverse thing.
Yeah, it throws a wrench in the works.
It does. The future is open-ended, constantly being shaped by our choices and the creation of new knowledge.
So even if we have the right mindset, there are no guarantees.
Right, but that's part of what makes us human, you know?
Wow.
Our ability to adapt, to learn from our mistakes, and to keep creating new knowledge.
It's how we evolve.
Exactly. And that's why Deutsch says we should embrace the unknown, see uncertainty as an opportunity.
Instead of being afraid of it.
Exactly.
Right.
So where does all of this lead us? What's the end goal?
Yeah, what's the point of all this evolution, according to Deutsch?
Well, he believes that we are at the beginning of infinity.
The beginning of infinity.
There's no limit to how much we can learn and how much progress we can make.
So we're just getting started.
In a way, yes. It challenges the way we usually think about things.
It does.
But it's a vision of the future that's filled with possibilities.
Yeah.
Where we keep solving problems, pushing the boundaries of knowledge, and expanding our understanding of everything.
It's kind of awe-inspiring when you think about it.
It is, but it also raises a lot of questions,
Like what?
What kind of knowledge will we create? What challenges will we face? What role will each of us play in shaping this future?
Those are big questions.
They are, but Deutsch gives us a framework for thinking about these things,
Okay.
to approach the unknown with optimism and curiosity and a real appreciation for human ingenuity.
I like that it's a good message to carry with us, as we navigate all the craziness of the 21st century.
It is. It reminds us that we're not just passive observers. We're active participants shaping the future with every choice we make and every idea we explore.
So what's the biggest takeaway then from all this? What do you think Deutsch would want us to remember?
I think he'd want us to remember that we're part of this incredible evolutionary adventure.
And we're not just along for the ride.
Exactly. We're helping to steer the ship.
So embrace the unknown, challenge those assumptions, and never stop learning.
Because the future is not something that just happens to us.
Right.
It's something we create.
And with a bit of optimism and creativity and a lot of hard work.
We can make it a future worth striving for.
So for anyone listening
Yeah.
who wants to dive deeper into these ideas,
Definitely check out David Deutsch's book, The Beginning of Infinity.
it's a challenging read, but it's worth it.
It is.
It'll make you think about the universe and our place in it in a whole new way.
And that's what we're all about here on The Deep Dive.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop learning.